In an industry obsessed with perfection, Peter Lindbergh dared to do the opposite. He embraced imperfection. His photography wasn't about glossy surfaces or artificial glamour. Instead, he captured raw emotions, wrinkles, untamed hair, and the soul behind the face. At a time when supermodels were becoming larger-than-life figures, Lindbergh reminded the world that beauty wasn't about flawlessness, but about depth and authenticity. He didn't just shoot models, he revealed their essence. His work turned young women into icons, shaping the era of the 90s supermodels and forever changing how we see beauty in fashion. But what made his approach so revolutionary? Why did every major model and designer want to work with him? To understand Lindbergh's legacy, we need to explore not only his biography, but also the world of fashion photography he disrupted and reinvented. This is the story of Peter Lindbergh, the man who changed fashion photography forever. Peter Lindbergh was born on November 23, 1944, in Leszno, Poland. However, due to the turmoil of World War II, his family relocated to Germany, where he grew up in the industrial town of Duisburg. His childhood was shaped by the gray, mechanical landscape of post-war Germany, an environment that would later influence the stark minimalism of his photographic style. Unlike many photographers who begin their journey with a camera in hand, Lindbergh was initially more drawn to painting. Inspired by Vincent van Gogh, he even hitchhiked across France as a young man, spending time in Arles, where Van Gogh had painted some of his most famous works. He later studied at the Academy of Fine Arts in Berlin, but formal education never truly captured his spirit. He was far more interested in observing real life than studying it in a classroom. His transition to photography came almost by accident. In the early 1970s, he started working as an assistant to German photographer Hans Lux. This experience shaped his approach. He realized that photography could be about storytelling, not just capturing beautiful clothes. By the late 70s, he had moved to Paris, determined to bring something new to the fashion world. And he did. The 1980s were an era of extravagance in fashion. The decade was defined by bold colors, voluminous hairstyles, and dramatic makeup. Power dressing, shoulder pads, and excess were everywhere. Fashion photography reflected this, with high-gloss magazine covers, heavy retouching, and a sense of artificial perfection dominating the industry. But Lindbergh saw something different. His famous 1988 shoot for Vogue, featuring a group of fresh-faced models on a beach, makeup-free, laughing, simply being themselves, was a turning point. It was a stark contrast to the high-gloss imagery of the era. The industry took notice. In a world where beauty was often manufactured, Lindbergh captured something real. He stripped fashion down to its essence, shooting in black and white, focusing on emotions rather than perfection. His work felt cinematic, more like stills from a French New Wave film than typical fashion photography. This naturalism wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was a statement. Lindbergh once said, "This should be the responsibility of photographers today, to free women, and finally everyone, from the terror of youth and perfection." In 1989, British Vogue approached Lindbergh to shoot the cover for their January 1990 issue. Instead of focusing on just one model, he gathered Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell, Linda Evangelista, Christy Turlington, and Tatjana Patitz, 5 women who would soon be known as the original supermodels. The image was groundbreaking. It wasn't just a fashion photo, it was a cultural moment. These women weren't just models, they were personalities, muses, and icons. Shortly after, George Michael saw Lindbergh's photo and invited the same group to star in his legendary Freedom. 90s music video, further solidifying their status as supermodels. Lindbergh didn't just photograph these women, he shaped their careers. Unlike many photographers who treated models as mere subjects, he built relationships with them, treating them as collaborators rather than objects. This trust led to some of the most intimate and iconic portraits in fashion history. In an interview, Linda Evangelista once said, "Peter saw something in us that no one else did. He captured not just our faces, but our spirits." His work helped define what it meant to be a supermodel in the 1990s. Lindbergh's deep respect for his subjects made him beloved among models. Many photographers of the time were known for their demanding and, at times, exploitative behavior. Lindbergh was different. He was kind, collaborative, and more interested in who the model was as a person than in what they were wearing. Kate Moss, who was discovered at the height of the supermodel era, once described her experience working with him. "Peter never asked me to be anything other than myself. He didn't care about trends. He cared about people." His ability to make his subjects comfortable led to some of the most striking portraits in fashion history. Lindbergh's influence didn't end with the 1990s. He continued working with the biggest names in fashion, from Dior to Prada, always staying true to his belief in authenticity. Even in an era dominated by Photoshop and filters, his work remained timeless. One of his last major projects was Dior, The Art of Color, a collaboration that celebrated beauty in its most artistic form. He also shot Pirelli calendars that broke conventions, moving away from the hyper-sexualized images of the past and instead focusing on intelligence, creativity, and depth. In 2016, he shot a Pirelli calendar featuring women like Helen Mirren, Robin Wright, and Charlotte Rampling, proving once again that beauty was about experience, not just youth. In 2019, the fashion world mourned his passing, but his legacy lives on, not just in the images he left behind, but in the way he changed fashion photography forever. Peter Lindbergh didn't just take pictures. He made us see beauty in a way we never had before. Even in today's digital age, where beauty is often filtered and curated, Lindbergh's work stands as a reminder of what photography can be. His influence can be seen in modern editorial shoots, in the resurgence of black and white photography, and in the ongoing conversation about authenticity in fashion. His images told stories. His models weren't just mannequins. They were women with thoughts, emotions, and depth. And that is why Peter Lindbergh will always be remembered, not just as a photographer, but as an artist who changed the way we see beauty.